Hey, this is Mark, and you're welcome to Auto Says. You're cruising down a street in East Endbol, and you pass a vintage American Chevy from the 50s sitting right next to a modified BMW with European flair. And just around the corner, there's a locally built Turkish sedan that somehow blends both worlds into something you've never seen before. Wild, right? If you've ever wondered how one country managed to create a car culture that's literally sitting at the crossroads of two continents, you're about to find out. And trust me, this story has more twists than a mountain road in the Turkish highlands. Before we dive into this automotive fusion adventure, smash that like button and subscribe, because what you're about to learn will completely change how you see international car culture. Now, here's where things get interesting, and I mean really interesting. Turkey's car scene didn't just happen overnight. It's the result of a 100-year financial chess game, political maneuvering, and a population that refused to choose between East and West when it came to their rides. Let me take you back to the 1920s, right after the Ottoman Empire collapsed and modern Turkey was born. The country was broke. I'm talking completely financially devastated after World War I, and Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the founding father of the Turkish Republic, had a vision that was absolutely radical for its time. He wanted Turkey to modernize faster than anyone thought possible, and cars, those beautiful machines of progress, were going to be a symbol of this new era. But here's the kicker. Turkey didn't have a single car factory, not one. Every vehicle had to be imported, which meant draining precious foreign currency reserves that the country desperately needed for other things, like, building roads and feeding people. So what did they do? They made a decision that would shape the next century of Turkish automotive culture. They opened their doors to both European and American manufacturers, playing both sides like a master negotiator at a poker table. Ford saw an opportunity and started shipping Model Ts and Model As to Turkish ports in the late 20s, and suddenly American iron was rolling through the streets of Ankara and Istanbul. Meanwhile, European brands like Fiat, Mercedes, and later BMW and Renault were also establishing dealerships, creating this incredible mixture of automotive DNA that you couldn't find anywhere else in the region. Think about it for a second. Where else in the world during the 1930s and 40s could you find American muscle philosophy sitting in the same garage district as precise German engineering and practical Italian design? But wait, because the story takes a dramatic turn in the 1960s, and this is where the financial element becomes absolutely crucial to understanding Turkey's unique position. The Turkish government, watching their foreign currency bleeding out to pay for imported cars, made a bold move that would define their automotive industry for generations. They implemented strict import restrictions and basically said to foreign manufacturers, if you want to sell cars here, you need to build them here. This wasn't just nationalist pride talking, this was economic survival. The country needed jobs, they needed industrial expertise, and they needed to keep those currency reserves from evaporating. And you know what happened next? The foreign automakers called their bluff and actually started setting up production facilities on Turkish soil. Fiat partnered with a local company to create Tofaş in 1968, Ford established Ford Otosan around the same time, and Renault eventually joined the party too. Suddenly, Turkey wasn't just importing cars, they were building them, modifying them, and adding their own cultural flavor to these Western designs. Here's where it gets even more fascinating and honestly kind of brilliant from a business perspective. These weren't just carbon copy factories stamping out identical vehicles to what was sold in Detroit or Stuttgart. Turkish engineers and designers started creating models specifically for local tastes and regional markets, blending Eastern preferences for durability and practicality with Western desires for style and performance. The Tofaş Şahin, introduced in the early 80s, became an absolute legend in Turkey, based on the Fiat 131 but modified and produced locally for decades beyond when Fiat stopped making the original. This car became a symbol of Turkish automotive identity. You'd see taxi drivers swearing by its reliability, you'd see young enthusiasts modifying them for street racing, and you'd see families passing them down through generations like heirlooms. Now, you might be wondering, why does any of this matter to American car enthusiasts? Well, stick with me because this is where the East-West fusion really starts to blow your mind. Throughout the 80s and 90s, while American car culture was going through its own identity crisis with oil embargoes and emission standards, and while European manufacturers were focusing on luxury and precision, Turkey was creating a hybrid culture that took the best of both worlds. Turkish car enthusiasts developed this unique appreciation for American V8 power and muscle car aesthetics, while simultaneously respecting European handling dynamics and build quality. Walk into any Turkish car meet today and you'll see pristine American classics from the 50s and 60s that were originally imported by wealthy families and have been maintained with almost religious devotion, parked right next to turbocharged European hot hatches with custom modifications that would make tuning shops in Berlin jealous. But here's the part that really showcases the financial savvy and historical significance of this whole situation. Turkey's geographical position as the bridge between Europe and Asia meant they became a crucial automotive manufacturing hub that served multiple markets simultaneously. By the 2000s, Turkey was producing over 1 million vehicles annually, with many of them being exported back to Europe and to markets throughout the Middle East and North Africa. Think about the irony here. A country that started with zero automotive manufacturing capability a century ago was now exporting cars to the very countries whose brands they had originally imported. The financial impact was massive. We're talking billions in export revenue, hundreds of thousands of jobs, and a complete transformation of Turkish industrial landscape. Companies like Ford Otosan became so successful that they started winning quality awards from their parent companies, sometimes producing higher quality vehicles than factories in the home countries. And the cultural fusion kept evolving in ways that nobody predicted. Japanese manufacturers eventually entered the Turkish market too, adding another layer to this automotive melting pot. Toyota, Honda, and Hyundai all established strong presences, and Turkish consumers and modifiers started blending Japanese reliability and tuning culture into their already eclectic mix. Imagine the knowledge transfer happening here. American muscle car restoration techniques meeting German precision engineering standards, meeting Japanese efficiency principles, all happening in shops and garages across Turkish cities. The modification scene that emerged from this fusion is absolutely insane. Turkish tuners developed specialties in combining parts and techniques from different automotive cultures that would normally never interact. You'd have a BMW with an American supercharger setup and Japanese-inspired interior modifications, or a classic American car with a modern European diesel engine swap for better fuel economy, or a Turkish-built Fiat derivative with a complete Japanese performance overhaul. This wasn't just throwing random parts together, this was thoughtful integration based on decades of exposure to multiple automotive philosophies. Now, let's talk about the economic challenges that tested this whole system, because it wasn't all smooth cruising. The Turkish lira, the currency, has experienced significant volatility over the past couple decades, which created some serious challenges for both manufacturers and consumers. When your currency loses value against the dollar and euro, suddenly those imported parts and licensed technologies become way more expensive, squeezing profit margins for manufacturers and making cars less affordable for everyday Turkish people. But here's where that East-West fusion mindset proved its value. Turkish automotive companies and enthusiasts became masters of adaptation and resourcefulness. They couldn't always afford brand new imported parts, so they developed incredible aftermarket and reproduction capabilities, manufacturing their own versions of components with surprising quality. They became experts at keeping older vehicles running long past their typical lifespan in Western countries, creating a used car culture where a well-maintained 20 or 30-year-old vehicle isn't just acceptable, it's often celebrated. This resourcefulness, born from economic necessity, created a DIY and modification culture that rivals anything you'd find in car-crazy nations worldwide. The historical significance of Turkey's automotive journey really hits home when you consider what it represents for developing nations and emerging markets. Turkey essentially created a playbook for how a country with limited resources and no automotive heritage could bootstrap itself into becoming a major player in the global automotive industry within generations. They did it by being strategic about which foreign partnerships to pursue, by protecting their market just enough to force local production without completely closing themselves off to innovation, and by fostering a culture that valued automotive knowledge from multiple sources rather than pledging loyalty to a single philosophy. And the fusion keeps getting deeper. Today's Turkish car scene includes a growing electric vehicle interest, with both imported EVs and discussions about local EV production, adding yet another dimension to this East-West blend. Young Turkish enthusiasts are now combining traditional combustion engine knowledge with cutting-edge electric vehicle technology, retrofitting classic cars with electric powertrains, and participating in global conversations about automotive futures. The street racing and car meet culture in cities like Istanbul and Ankara would feel familiar to to American enthusiasts, but with distinctly different flavors. You'll find the same passion, the same late-night gatherings, the same pride in builds, but the vehicles themselves tell a different story, one where a modified Renault Megane gets the same respect as a classic Mustang, where a locally produced Tofaş receives as much attention as an imported BMW. Here's something that'll really put this in perspective for American viewers. Imagine if the United States had spent the past century equally exposed to Asian, European, and domestic automotive cultures, not just as imports, but as locally produced vehicles with American modifications and input. That's essentially what Turkey experienced, and it created automotive enthusiasts with incredibly diverse knowledge bases and appreciation for different engineering approaches. As we roll toward the conclusion of this journey, think about what Turkey's car scene teaches us about cultural fusion in general. It shows that you don't have to choose one influence or reject others to build something meaningful. The Turkish automotive world succeeded precisely because it remained open to influences from multiple directions, taking the horsepower passion from America, the engineering precision from Germany, the practical reliability from Japan, and blending it all with local needs and creativity. The financial numbers back up this success story. Turkey's automotive sector now contributes roughly 4% to the country's GDP, employs hundreds of thousands directly and millions indirectly, and represents one of the country's largest export categories. For a nation that started with nothing but determination and strategic thinking a century ago, that's absolutely remarkable. So the next time you see a car video featuring some wild build from Turkey, or you read about Turkish automotive manufacturing, remember that you're looking at the results of a 100-year experiment in cultural fusion, economic strategy, and pure automotive passion. This is Mark from AutoSays, reminding you that the best car cultures don't happen in isolation. They happen at the crossroads where different worlds meet, clash, combine, and create something entirely new. If this story fired you up, hit that subscribe button because we're diving into more untold automotive stories that'll change how you see car culture worldwide. And trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.